Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Naomi Grant, the president of the Chapel Preservation Society. Welcome to our first event of this kind in quite a while. We haven't ever had a poet laureate visit us and his friends. So we are, yeah. And without further ado, Washington State's poet laureate is Derek Sheffield, and with him are special guests Kevin Miller and Alan Braden, and I'm sure that Derek will tell us more. Welcome, Derek, and everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. And I want to begin tonight by thanking Naomi and Lisa and all the amazing volunteers who have kept this place open to the public. As I understand it, when the church moved and this could potentially have been sold and privatized, this group stepped up, and so thank you so much. It's really special to be here for me tonight. When Lisa reached out, I said, "How did you know? How did you know?" And she said, "I didn't know." And so this place is sacred ground for me, in that the woman who took care of me, my nanny, when my dad was on his long business trips, lived just up the road, and this was where she came to church. And I think we even had her 80th birthday party here as well. Lucy Brewer was her name. And so you'll hear a little bit more about her tonight. But what I want to do right now is tell you a little bit about Mr. Miller here. This young man was my high school poetry teacher. He taught he was in the school system here in Washington for what, 72 years? It was something like that, because he taught he was in Peninsula, and then he was at Gig Harbor. I think you were at Peninsula. And there's at Gig Harbor, and then he joined the dark side, and he administered for a while. He administrated, and the kids loved him. And as we did when we were his students. And he just lit up a whole bunch of lives, including mine, as a teacher at Gig Harbor High School for a long time. You were there for about, what, 30 years there? 25? 20 some years, yeah. And he has a couple of books here tonight, Home and Away and Vanish. Now, hold it. Don't you have a newer one from Moonpath Press? Is that Spring Meditation? Are you sold out?
Yeah, well, they're coming.
Okay.
They'll be there next week when nobody cares.
Okay. So there's a terrific Washington State Press, Moonpath, which just published his most recent book, Spring Meditation. But Vanish, which is right there, received the Wandering Angus Press Publication Award in 2019. And here it is. He taught in the public schools for 39 years. It was 39. So that's Kevin Miller. And really, and I want to thank Lisa and her colleagues also for very kindly allowing me to, because I said, hey, I know a couple of great poets in the area there too. Could we bring them along? And Lisa said, sure, yeah, let's do it. And the other one is this guy right here, who, as you can see, is trying to steal my look, my bolo look, except he's the OG bolo, because this fella is a white swan cowboy. Now, if you know what that means, you've been over to the Yakima area. White Swan is on the reservation over there, and Alan Braden was, what, fifth generation? Fourth generation farmer, rancher on that land in White Swan. And I believe that bolo is from the 80s. So, weren't you driving a Trans Am and wearing a mullet? I believe you were. Was it a Trans Am? Firebird. Same diff, as we said in the 80s, same diff. So, but Alan is a terrific poet. He teaches at Tacoma Community College and has had many fortunate students there. His book is A Wreath of Down and Drops of Blood, and it's a terrific book of poetry. And let's see, what else can I tell you about him? Just all around nice guy. Yeah. And you know, poet, a few words here and there. Let's read some poems. Come on up here, guys. So we thought we might try something a little different and do like a kind of a round robin or segue type reading, which is, I think, maybe more fun for the audience than listening to a straight poetry reading. Because as Kevin has told me more than once, I've never been to a poetry reading that was too short. And so, you know, and I get it because poems are like fudge. You know, they are dense, man, and the ear can only take so many of those in one evening. And so we'll maybe have a little bit of chit-chat between poems, and we're going to listen to each other's poems and try to read ones that maybe speak to what was just read. And we decided that Kevin would go first.
I'm going to, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with a local poem. I lived at the end of Ray Nash Drive by the Arletta store for 25 years. So I'm starting with this poem. At the ball field across from the Arletta store. When the light is right, the time when day feels tired but not asleep, when no one is hurried save the bats, the lines and shapes of one day drift slowly into the blank of tomorrow. Today, someone left a white chair along the first baseline. The store is closed. The Arletta Yankees have been driven home. They dream. No one sits and watches the empty field.
So, if you want to deepen your connection to this place, to this harbor place of ours, then you couldn't do much better than reading Kevin's poems, as you can hear. And I remember that house of his in Arletta. And here's a poem that comes from that time when he was living there and teaching us. It's called Never for God's Sake Love. Never use soul, and never for God's sake love, he told us, as a cherry hue spread across his cheeks like an Irish Catholic sunset. Use these, and he upturned a sack, words like marbles, like tumble, blur, and murmur, scattering down rows of students, one or two always rolling past outstretched fingers, out through the crack under the door. Whisper, slip, far. But his students learned better his one-liners and never dared dangle their modifiers in class. Tricks they knew were for kids and him. They studied him as he walked among them, ambassador of goldfinch and ache, rain and skin. They let the absolutes pass through their stud-pierced souls, counting every time he spat specificity or circled an image and wrote yes in blue ink. Yes to 1,000 second chances in the pink nub atop every pencil, yes to who and what and sometimes why to all of that, and even our misspelled, awkward, run-on love.
Better a run-on love than a fragment love. Or a dangling love. Or a love of dangling. So thanks for coming, by the way. One of the flock names for a group of magpie is charm. So this is called the charming fable. If ever the wind delivers a whiff of decay, they'll cease thieving kibble or snatching ground nestlings. Their black gleams oil spill iridescence, the obsidian of a hearse, sideways glancers, their white, the white of bones pecked clean, vulturous appetite, all gussied up in undertaker pallor for formal dining. Carcass dancers, those ditched roadkill comforters, a swoon of ants, a trance of flies, have set the table for these gristled wrestlers to hold their vigil. We call it a charm. We called that meadow/crime scene the island because Simcoe Creek formed a question mark on three sides. Marrow ticklers, whose pallbearers are you?
I want to thank Derek and Alan. It's really nice to be brought out of the house. I told them I haven't read since 2019. So part of my brilliance was to publish this book at the height of the pandemic and then title it Vanish. Timing is everything. I've always admired Alan's ties to horses. He's always sending me horsey poems, as he calls them. And I'm from Seattle, so we didn't have horses. But this poem has horses, so that's why I'm reading. And this is the last 20-some pages of this book are poems about marriage, and I am not an expert on the subject, but my goddaughter asked me to write some poems about marriage, and I did. So this is just one of those. It's called "It's Like Feeding Horses in a Snowstorm. The sky descends like a veil and conceals pastures an acre at a time. The order that is fence lines disappears in the marriage of earth and sky. As the two of you dish the flakes, collars up, heads down, and what doesn't vanish is the idea of horses and each other, silent within the whistling quiet of storm. This is work, whether you see it or not.
Horses. I don't have any horse poems, but I shoveled a lot of manure. I mended a lot of fences and irrigation. So here's one that maybe one for our seahorses. It's not by me, but it's part of this book that I co-wrote, co-created, co-edited with my two pals, Liz and C. Marie, called Cascadia Field Guide. It's like an artistic field guide to Cascadia. And so for all the beings, aka species, that we honor in this book, we worked really hard to find poems for them. And some of the poems, some of the beings, we couldn't find poems. Like, for example, earlier today I was working with some kids at Charles Wright Academy in Tacoma, and I read them the poem for Copepod. Despite our scouring of the literature, we found no poem for Copepod, so we had to ask someone to write that. Fortunately for Stellar Sea Lion, there was a poem that we found by Ursula Le Guin, who is a marvelous Cascadian writer that you might be familiar with. Her work was so important to me back when I was Mr. Miller's student, and it still is. So this is a poem by her. It's called Found Poem, and it has an epigraph from a newspaper, from the AP. And the epigraph reads, however, Bruce Baird, Laguna Beach's chief lifeguard, doubts that sea lions could ever replace or even really aid his staff. If you were someone from Ohio and you were in the waters having trouble and a sea lion approached you, well, it would require a whole lot more public education, he told the Orange County Register. If I am ever someone from Ohio, in the water having trouble, off a continent's west edge, and am translated to my element by a sudden, warm, great animal with sea dark fur, sleek shining, and the eyes of Shiva, I hope to sink my troubles like a stone, and all uneducated ride her inshore, shouting with the foam praises of the freedom to be saved.
Amen. Yeah, I don't think I have any sea lion.
You've got horse poems.
Oh.
You've got some really amazing horse poems.
I've got some horse poems.
What's this?
I could just change it, yeah. You ever wonder if a bird burps? Does it taste like worms and bugs? Not if it's a hummingbird. That would be sweet. And this is a true story about a hummingbird. Unfortunately, and fortunately. Fable of the hummingbird within. Usually I hear them from pretty far off, a regular on campus, trilling more like a repeated smooching in his favorite tree as I trudge back to my office after another meeting with admin, undoing the work I've done. Maybe my brain filters the song as kiss off, kiss off. Sure, I hear them from far off, usually a bumble buzzing through dusk in the backyard before I catch that one with my dim nearsightedness. This evening's, though, materializes where, as I tip the watering can, its contents dribble onto a sapling. There's the glint of a garnet red bow tie, and from his syringe, a tongue zipping to lick non-existent lips between sips. I keep pouring, and he keeps lapping. Once his thirst settles, I resume whatever business I had thought important.
So, birds. So, I mean, that's a pretty tough bird poem to live up to, though. This is called In Her Garden. After a good rain, goldfinch string their music through the serviceberry trees. My wife thinks she's St. Francis. She charms the cedar waxwing, which lights close enough to touch. She tells me Francis's theory of containers. Take from the full, fill the empty. This works for her. The music of birds, a song from Francis, and all those nests, the shape of cupped hands waiting.
Hawk. It's something older than hate, that gleam in her glass brown eye, something to do with the tendon she would sever if I gave her the chance. That is what I press to my heart with one hand, while with the other I push down her throat gobbets of chicken dripping from the end of a pair of chopsticks. No matter which words I offer each time I open her cage and reach with my gloved fingers, she snap-cocks her wings and splays her bill into hooked scissors. She is almost ready to be thrown into the air, the flaps of her huge wings struggling into flight, gusting across my skin. But for now, still, the knife of her heart next to mine. How tethered she is to no man. How she needs me like the sun needs the wind to burn.
I'll just stick with my pre-recorded program. I was reading some great poems a few months ago by a poet named Rose McLarney, and she has a poem about a French word that's spelled almost like silage. Sauvage, I think, is, my French is non-existent, but Google says something like sauvage. And it's a term for when somebody that's used too much perfume or too much cologne and you're left in their wake. They have a term for that, sauvage. And of course the French would come up with that, right? But she didn't mention much about silage, so I had to write a poem about silage. Your Own Fable, after her own, by Rose McLarney. But there's more than the scent on a breeze over the concrete, fortressing those cobs of field corn, tractored into heaps to smolder like tobacco leaves or curing pork. It has a French cousin, Silage, murmuring a perfume's subtleties brought to light by a poet named after a flower. She too names a longing to belong to the fields that she used to long to escape. Here, though, the reek of mildew and rot lives on, an aftermath that settles into your work clothes and hair and will never wash away.
So, my segue here will be Alan's poem connects to his poem from something from another poet. So I'm going to read something that
He got an idea from another poet, and that's it. So I had a poet friend, not from these lads' generation, but more from my generation, and he wrote me a postcard one day, and he said, "That's it, I'm done. I can't find the reason to go from bed to the notebook anymore, so I'm done." And it was pretty heartbreaking to me. And I knew there was no argument. Just the guy he is, there's no argument. So I thought, well, I don't want that to happen. It will, but I don't want it to happen. So I got to figure out a reason every day to get up, to have something to go to the notebook. So I started writing every day one 7-line poem with each line of 7 syllables. So I call them mix because Mickey Mantle was number 7, so I call them mix. So I got a bunch of mix here. I'm not going to read a bunch of mix, but I'll read a few mix. I'll read one now. Start near Minter Creek. A stick boat near the shallows spins with an ease a leaf might envy. Crisp twirl before it disappears near the maple's bold fan of fall's blush. Its fire glaze, a sheen on the surface, hangs like candle fire post-wish.
So, on that theme of endings, I wanted to share. So this is a poem for Lucy Brewer, who lived for a long time. Her granddaughter lives there now at 467 6th Court, just down the road. And she had all kinds of friends around here. Millie, there was Millie and some others. I can't remember all of them, but it was pretty special to come down here with her, and special to be here in this space that held that woman. This poem's called "It Wasn't the Laundry." The father could not have known the woman he'd hired to be with his children while he followed his work to far cities would bring such pain. It wasn't the laundry, floors, or sack lunches, not the dropping off or picking up that did it. It came after dinner when she called them to a game and kept calling until even the boy closed the latest in a series of books where he'd been since his mother had left, and unlocked his door and walked downstairs to get it over with. With that woman and his 2 sisters, he sat around the little used dining room table to connect 4 colored discs or link cool tiles with clicks across the polished wood, or lay down a card. Uno. The pain they learned began in queries about their day and help with fractions, in how to stitch a rip and fry potatoes. It grew in flowers from her garden, the blue wheels of bachelor buttons and purple-hearted Sweet William. Do we live in your days, Mother? Where this time, Father? Their faces over years around that table, starting to smile, to fly into laughter.
Now that woman, neither mother nor father, lies in a distant bed. Different people on different shifts lift spoons to her mouth, change her sheets. There is no more calling or hearing, and no games but the one in her eyes, turned toward a window, where twice a day twilight touches her face, being neither day nor night, but a little of both, and both end and beginning. Here is the hurt. Their father did not know he was buying in every check he left on the kitchen counter.
I'm waiting for the mic. We don't have mic. Yeah, so some of that was childhood. More than once, Derek and I have had the conversation where we have lived double lives, sort of. 'Cause he grew up in this area, and now his adult life teaching Central Washington. I grew up in Central Washington, and I'm over here. For better or worse.
I'm your Bizarro.
Yeah, well, you're definitely bizarre, yeah. So childhood, speaking of bizarre, 1 or 2 years after March 2020, they had the K through 12 schools were closed, and then they opened in the spring instead of opening in the fall, and that was really jarring for me, because things just didn't seem to line up. So that was kind of the germ that grew into this poem, which is called Postscript Post-COVID. The school bus is en route again, veering left at the hypotenuse of Angle Road. In school clothes, a year outgrown, kids jostle and jockey into forgotten order. Parents cuss the school zones like it's the end of summer. It just doesn't feel like fall, with its tang of Elmer paste, pencil shavings, borax, mown grass, and enough construction paper to engineer a rainbow. Why are trillium conjugating in our yards? Some answers may vary, like memory with its waft of harvest time, hops, grapes, spear and peppermints punctuating the atmosphere of back-to-school mornings. Laterals A, B, and C bisecting the bankrupt fields from here to Main Street. You stepped into the same bus for 12 years. Do the math. You earned, finally, a ticket out of that split infinitive of a town for a future nothing but glam. Fall never smelled like freedom until now.
So I'm trying to follow. So this is an old poem. They're all old poems now, I guess. But both of the gentlemen here were talking about family and things like that. I lived in Denmark in 1990 for a year. And one of my favorite things in living in Denmark was riding the train home from Aarhus, which was the big city in the area where I live, and I'd ride it a number of kilometers home to Greno, which is a small little village where I live. And I used to just love riding the train at dark, just at dinner time, because when you would go along the tracks out of Aarhus, you could, would be like being invited to dinner at everybody's house. And you just watch all the families in the middle of their lives, and it was like, anyway, it felt legitimate. It didn't feel perverted. I felt like it was okay. So anyway. But this is called The Train Home. Monday evening after rain, the greens hard against the soft new growth, the gray sky rises and presents a fresh distance, a space filled again by swallows and slips of sound. On the evening train from Aarhus, I love to glide through people's lives. A woman at the window watches moving light. A boy arrives last to dinner. A man in a chair reads. Steam rises in an empty kitchen. This evening with swallows you travel by train. You pass this man in a yard, his apple tree close to blossom, its bark black from recent rain. He needs everything home before dark.
He needs everything home before dark. Okay. Let's read this one then. He needs everything. He needs that daughter home before dark. To quote singer-songwriter Greg Brown, I'm a man who's rich in daughters. This one is called All of It and Zoe. We wondered about the snow beyond our windows, looking out every morning across the dwindling archipelago of white puzzle pieces. Which day will be its last? We wrote our guesses in April's white squares in our names. And there must have been a number, too, for the day you reached up to take my hand and lead me by little steps out the door. We wore our puffy coats as you tugged me down the drive, our steps crunching across gravel and off through brush until we came to needles and twigs made into a mound as tall as you, sun-touched and steaming like something new, and we saw somehow alive with tiny movements in the millions. Breathlessly, with all the excitement of your little life, you said, Daddy, we're in the whole world, and squeezed my hand. I turned my gaze from those ants, more and more coming to life, to your gold, unbrushed hair pinned by a pink barrette and glowing in the sun. Brisk air on my skin, bristle of ridgetop pine trees, trickle and scent of meltwater and blue sky, all of it, and all of you and me. Yes, yes, we are.
What was that singer's name?
Greg Brown.
Greg Brown.
Greg Brown.
Yeah. Midwest guy. Iowa, the Iowa Waltz. Yeah.
This poem has some song lyrics. Be glad that I'm not going to sing. Postscript during the 5th season out of 4, 2020. First, it was spring training, bunted back to summer camp. COVID-19, the start of it. Now advisories fill the AM bandwidth, and flames leap the interstate and over the hotshots and sheriffs. Reopened schools clam up early to duct tape the windows. A Tannum Ridge, nothing but goddamn char from Cowichie to Moxie. Trailer parks and hop yards extinguished. Fire season cooks up hurricanes, meanwhile, across the Gulf. My earbuds tangle and stink like a campground, and Lucinda Williams forgets how to end Lake Charles. Did an angel whisper in your ear and hold you close and take away your fear in those long last moments? If ever a year was in need of rescue, then this year of evening griefs, of elegies aplenty. Wind drowns whatever water can't. At considerable loss, Merv Griffin battens down his riverboats, and the National Guard serves MREs from the casino parking lot. News crews blow in, take selfies, and report on the local who swears the voice of God booming in the storm had up and snatched the Fur Queen parade float and scattered bits of tissue, paper, and chicken wire all over Calcasieu Parish, maybe as far as Natchitoches. It's a human interest piece.
Okay, this is called Vanish. And the title runs into the first line. Vanish whispers its swish of sound as a trail of breath follows an image you hold like the title of the film you saw 2 nights ago, no longer on the tip of anything. No aftertaste, no crumbs to help find your way back to a place you forget being. This little tremor of fear when the ripples left by the stone fail to reach the edge, and the pond is a space as dark as swallows you remember returning to the nook above the door in the garage behind the house you find only in your sleep.
Mic drop. So, despairingly sad or just sad? Yes.
Those are the options.
All right. This is called Christmas Party. As George Bush Jr. would say, this is a true fact. Christmas party. We stepped through double doors into a wide, bright room filled with polished surfaces and the voices of 60 or so guests. My daughter's school friend whisks her away as her father sees me eyeing the massive beams spanning the ceiling. Old growth from Canada, he tells me, but really I should see their house in Boise. He shows me to a rich array of catered dishes spread across dark quartz. As I fill my plate, I hear a woman laughing at the sore losers they are, the people protesting the president's threats against immigrants. Behind her, through a wall of glass 10 feet high and strung with white lights, a wooden cross shining in the falling snow. More talk, wine, rooms, then my daughter, ready to go, and as I reach for our coats, I look down to find a hummingbird lying on the slats of a heating vent. No misplaced ornament I see as I pick it up, but real iridescence that is less than air on my palm. My daughter reaches one slim finger toward its wings stuck in an emerald X, just as the hostess finds us. How in the world? And I see how it slipped through a door left open at summer's end as they were packing for the next house. The door swung shut, and the hummingbird was left to zip and swing through all that vaulted space, to perch on leather and brass and patter like a great and solitary bee against the many sun-splashed windows. Months later, with such luxury and no way to live, this shimmery mummy. Another guest walks up and grabs my wrist, saying, "Oh, can I have it? I could make something," reaching for her purse. Our tires glide through the new snow, perhaps remembering all the hummingbirds that blurred their way to our feeders to sit all summer. My daughter asks, "Will it be okay?" I stare into the bright tunnel our lights make, all the flakes sweeping down like snipped wings. What we have made comes back in the snap of that black purse.
Despairing when he said
You find yourself on a list for performance like that.
So no horses, but I'll end with this farmy poem. And if you were a cheerleader or a jock in high school, I apologize. And I should also say that blackleg and bangs are livestock diseases. What I left behind. My father's acetylene torch, nickel rod and welder, come along, false teeth, string ties, a pocket watch, faded bandanas, chew roll, tobacco tin full of hay money, silos, and silage. Mother's migraines, milk pasteurizer, 6-pack of Tab in the icebox, lilacs and laundry pins on the line, lumpy ashtrays we made for Mother's Day, secondhand smoke, the silly faces she used to make, the root cellar and fruit room. At the end of our lane, the shut-in using Army field glasses to watch the shut-in next to the county dump is what I left behind. And the alcoholic carpenter who lost his eye in a cornfield somewhere in Illinois, and whose blonde son gave 3 fingers to a table saw. I left behind the suicide pacts, the car wreck homecoming night that cut short the future of a popular girl, the knocked up cheerleaders and futureless jocks, the sour stank of locker rooms, goat ropers and shit kickers, 4-H and FFA. I left behind the wheel lines and hand lines, irrigation ditches and dams, mud and dust, clover and alfalfa, teasel and thistle, stinkweed and tumbleweed, quail and coyote, Angus and Holstein, 100 distempered barn cats in the ground, and the best dog a boy could ask for, a bunkhouse and loafing shed. I left pitching shit, straw, long hay, and chopped hay, bucking bales, bags of feed, bags of seed, shoveling dirt, mud, grain, and snow. I left head lice, fetal alcohol syndrome, ringworm, pink eye, hoof rot, bangs, blackleg. I left bag bomb, hay hooks, sledges, angle iron, jackknives, pitchforks, 3-time and 10-time, boot grease, a grease gun, 2 shotguns, a side delivery rake, 3-bottom plow, spring tooth harrow. Left decades of breathing and living in dust, hay dust, grain dust, malathion, DDT, smoke, ash from the eruption. Left the scent of that lilac growing against our pump house, my sisters watching the young and the restless, our fathers kiss goodnight on my forehead. And that's it.
Well, I think maybe we have just a few minutes for questions here, if anybody has a question. And it's okay if you don't.
Rebuttal,
Hey,
Mr. Darcher.
Darcher! Oh my God, you're here. How you doing, man?
Good. Couldn't have found a more obscure venue.
Hey,
Answer
this is
that.
a beautiful venue.
No, I
You,
don't doubt that. I ran out of breadcrumbs about 10 years ago.
thank you for making the trip. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't miss it. Hey, what do you three feel that poetry accomplishes more or better or differently than other writing formats? I withdraw the question.
Well, Derek and I should be able to feel this because we both started writing fiction first and then went over to the dark side. So all I can tell you from what I recall is when I was writing fiction, the story and the characters, and it was bad fiction. The story and the characters would grow and grow in my head until I really couldn't hold a thought outside of the story until I had to purge it. If I wrote it down, then my head would clear again. That doesn't happen for me with poetry. With poetry, it's more, I'm not going to say my heart, but it's more of an urge rather than an idea that kind of percolates and swells, and then finally at some point the right image or the right little bit of irony or phrase is a catalyst.
What is the process of being chosen as poet laureate?
I was trying to think of something funny, but nothing is coming to mind.
Starts
So
with a
I'll just,
roommate, right?
Answer your question. Yeah, no, I wish I would have been in there 10 years ago. No, it's just it's a pretty thorough application with a lot of work and videos and essays that you write, and then there are 2 arts organizations, Humanities Washington and Arts Washington, which coordinate judges from all over the state that winnow the applications down, and then they meet, and then they have interviews. And I think there were about 10 of the judges when I interviewed for it, and then they offered it to me. I mean, that says like you can be nominated or you can apply yourself, but nobody could nominate anybody because you got to write all these freaking essays, man. I mean, they really make you work for it. I had to write essays. But I think, you know, I think they try to like pick someone who's kind of already doing the work. Like, I mean, that's what I said in my application. I've been doing this work in Central Washington for a long time, and I thought I could do it for the whole state. But and then they make a recommendation, and then the governor says, okay, sure. And then I don't think the governor like has denied, the program is about 18 years old, 20 years old maybe, and I don't think the governor has ever like said, oh no, I don't want her or him. So the governor says, okay, this is the appointment, and then the governor appoints you officially, and then it's interesting is like it gets real when you have to swear to uphold the Constitution, and you got to sign in front of a notary and sing an anthem, and so now I have to uphold the Constitution.
Somebody's got to.
I have a question that has to do with, I always think it's interesting to hear what poets say about their impulse to write a poem. And sometimes I think when you talked about your 7 lines a day or 7 syllables each, that it's kind of a habit, and sometimes that juices an impulse for a poem or a larger or something. But are you getting what I'm talking about? Like, what is it that kind of juices that gives you the impulse for a poem, or what do you do to kind of make that happen? This is kind of an out there, nebulous kind of question, but it has to do with where they come from, right? For you. Different for everybody.
I mean, for me, it's just simply paying attention and then language. I mean, usually the language, for me now, the language creates the poem. I mean, I don't know where I'm going. It's discovery every day. Well, in some days it's not discovery at all, but I mean, usually wherever, it's never a planned movement for me. It's you know, you start here and you end up there. So that's part of the joy.
Yeah, Robert Frost said, no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader. So it's always got to be a discovery process. And those are my favorite poems of my own when I like, oh my God, where did that come from? I didn't know that was in me. And you know, that's why we love art. You know, like, I don't know, is it a muse? Am I filled with divinity? Is this the imagination? Is it the subconscious? All of the above? My spleen? You know, too, I think getting back to Darcher's question about poetry, the distillation, the conciseness of poetry, I think, is part of it too. But also the topics. You know, it's like it's a special kind of songful nonfiction. Typically, I mean, not all poems are that way, but typically I think it's, I don't know, it's like, I think I go to it because it's the most vulnerable we be in poems, and it's the place where we consistently talk about the things that matter most.
Nice.
Can I ask a question to add on to that? Isn't the succinctness of a poem demanding of that? Because you can't just ramble on in a poem. You know, how the poem creates itself. The story has to be there in so few words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ramble on. Ramble on.
Well, the first thing Kevin mentioned was attention, and lately my favorite quote has been from Mary Oliver. where she says, attention is a form of devotion. And I've been thinking about that a lot. But yeah, my process keeps changing. Whether I mentioned earlier to Darcher's question, whether it's like an image or a line or a title. Christy, you said how to make those things happen or happen more often. Like getting struck by lightning more often. And probably, other than being out in the natural world for me, which isn't for every poet, but it's one of my muses, I guess. Reading good stuff. Reading stuff where you're like, God damn, I wish I'd written that. To kind of prime the pump, I suppose. And avoiding the bad stuff, which seems to be in a lot of places.
But it's not just words on a page, it's a way of being in the world, it's a way of being one upon whom nothing is lost, it's a way of leading the examined life, and noticing, noticing, it's a way, it's like, I think what it was about seeing this guy making poems and talking about them and teaching them to us is it was like there was more life to be had with poetry. That with that language and with that particular thing known as poetry, you had access to more life. There's more life. Another critic says it expands your stock of available reality. Like language does, like that great word that Alan shared with us, silage, silage, sauvage, sauvage, that, the wake of perfume. So, you have a word for that now. Oh, okay, and you're more aware of it, and it's more reality. And yeah, it's like something about that. Well, I think that seems like a good note.
Thank you so much
to end it on.
for